just what we need before we say a word. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. So undeniable, I can hardly speak. A peace so unexplainable, I can hardly think as you call me. Deeper still as you call me. Deeper still as you call me. Deeper still into love. Love, love, love. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. A good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. Welcome and good morning. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Welcome to this special combined worship experience here at Nampa First United Methodist Church. I am Adriana Caloca-Steen. I have the privilege of being one of your many worship leaders this morning. Today we finish our series, What the Tech, with a panel of experts to help us use wisdom in navigating the digital world. You'll get to meet them very soon. Today's topic is especially important for all adults and teens. However, it may not be appropriate for all children as the topics involve safety on the internet. With that in mind, we invite all parents of preschool or elementary students to utilize the children's ministry programming today. Just check your students in at the contact point at the entrance of the church, and then make sure to pick them up afterwards. Because today is so critical for teens, we encourage all parents of teens to ensure teens stay here with us to hear these experts. We are so glad that you're here today, and with that in mind, will you join me for our gathering prayer? Dear Lord, we come from all different paths with all different things on our minds. We pray that this time, this morning, be sacred, that it be holy, and that we focus on hearing your wisdom and letting the words that we hear impact our lives in a positive way, Lord. We pray that you bring stillness into this space and that we leave transformed, Lord. We ask these things in your name, my Lord and Savior. Amen. Let us pray together the prayer that Jesus taught his disciples to pray by saying, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the glory, and the glory forever. Amen. Let's stand if you are, as you are able, in body or in spirit, as we worship God.
Spirit of the living God, Spirit of the living God, we only want to hear your voice. We're hanging on every word. Spirit of the living God, Spirit of the living God, we want to know you more and more. We're hanging on every word.
Just the voices.
Holy, 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 Lord God Almighty. All thy works shall praise thy name in earth and sky and sea. Holy, 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 merciful and mighty, God in three persons, blessed Trinity.
My name is Patsy Cooper, and today's scripture reading is from 1 Corinthians chapter 16, verses 13 through 14, from the New Revised Standard Version. Keep alert, stand firm in your faith, be courageous, be strong. Let all you do be done in love. May God add God's blessings in these words today.
Americans spent over $145 billion on technology this Christmas. We spend an average of 4 hours a day on our screens. We look at our smartphones an average of 58 times each day. More than 70% of us use social media. Technology touches every aspect of our lives. It holds the promise of enormous good. But misused, it can cause untold pain, leaving us feeling isolated, anxious, depressed, or addicted. It's been said that technology makes a tremendous servant, but a terrible master. This month, we're exploring how we can avoid the perils and unleash the promise of technology in our lives, our families, and our communities.
Good morning. I'm so glad you're here in person today. I'm also grateful for all of you who are worshiping with us online today and came to participate in this panel conversation. Could you turn around at the camera that's in the back of the room and just yell and say good morning to all those folks that might be on YouTube this morning or on Facebook or perhaps on our website or wherever you may be worshiping from. We're grateful that you are here. My name's Rob Walters. I'm the pastor here, and I just want to remind you that God loves all people, just some of you a little more than others. That's those of you rooting for the Chiefs this afternoon. I wore my red, but I recognize in today's game sometimes the color can be a little confusing, right? So I just want to clarify that the red is definitely for the Chiefs. So, you know, I grew up in Kansas City. It's just the way things happen to be. So as much as I love you all, 49ers, I'll be here to provide pastoral care for you immediately after today's match. I'm really glad you're here today. I don't care who you're rooting for. We're super glad you're here today, and welcome. I'm so thankful that you're here. We've been in a series called What the Tech, and we've been talking about some challenges for the past few weeks of both the perils and the blessings of technology. We've given you some challenges each and every week, and I just want to highlight what those were in case you've missed these past couple weeks. If you're online right now and you've missed these few weeks, they're all on YouTube. Feel free to go back and check them out. You can also see them on our website or on social media. I just want to remind you of these takeaways and ask you how you did with each one of these items. Number one, on the first week, I challenge you to download something faith-based and integrate it into your phone use. If you're on your phone all the time, download something faith-based. I gave you several options, including several options that are great for kids, and I want to encourage you to incorporate that into your use of technology. Number two, I challenge you to turn off your notifications. Check your phone when you want to check your phone, not when somebody else decides they want to check your phone, all right? So turn off your notifications and control that time. Number three, buy an alarm clock. I've tried to start doing this during this series. I have frequently slept with my phone right next to me, and sometimes that's challenging. So buy an alarm clock and wake up to something else so you're not awakened all night with those notification types of sounds. At least turn them off. Number four, set a timer. If you're using technology on a regular basis, I'm doing this at work now. I give myself about 55 minutes in front of a computer, and then I say, take a stretch break, get up, move around before I come back to it again. Set yourself a timer. And lastly, we did a poll. We asked you all as a group, and the results showed up right on the screen, and you said, 75% of you said, I use technology too much right now, and it's not good for me. Some of you said definitely, some of you said most of the time I'm using it too much. 75% of you, so we challenge you just to be honest with yourself. Ask yourself, do you need a little bit of a break? Do you need to connect in other ways? All right, skip it on to week 2. I challenge you these things. Use your voice on social media. Social media is a powerful platform for you to utilize your voice. But don't forget, number 2, to remain connected to those offline relationships with others as well. That's really, really critical that we stay connected in other ways in addition to just our use of technology. Number 3, pause, block, unfollow, or unfriend. If you find somebody who is just consistently getting under your skin, especially in a political season, and you find yourself tense and frustrated, and you step away from your phone, you find yourself angry, it's time to take a break. It's time to take a break, pause, step away for a bit. Number 4, use social media to share your voice or to share your faith with somebody else. I know a lot of you shared this event this morning. I saw your postings, and a lot of you shared this event today. It's a great way to do it. And number 5, remember, take a break when you need it. All right, skipping on to week number 3. We talked a little bit about scams and the challenges with scams, and I challenged you one big thing, and we're going to say it out loud because we're all learning this together. Here we go. Number 1, confirm before sending money. Do not send money or gift cards or a variety of other things without confirming the source first. We talked a lot about that. That doesn't mean responding to the email you got or responding to the phone call you got. Call a person you really know and talk to them first. Make sure before you send money. Number 2, double check sources before clicking share or like or retweet. Make sure what you're sharing is really true and make sure that's really the case. Number 3, watch your words to ensure they are honest and graceful. We talked a lot about cyberbullying, and we talked about what it means to always be honest and graceful and to speak truth, but to do it with love, all right? Last week, we asked the question, what if Jesus had an iPhone? And here were the takeaways. Let's see how you did. Here was your test for the morning, all right? Number 1, insist on quiet prayer time and read the Bible daily. Find time to do that. Stay grounded. Number 2, make weekly worship a priority. Make sure you show up. You're here this morning. Thanks for being here. Number 3, use the do not disturb button. Take a break away, use the do not disturb button, and make sure you have time with others. I'm doing that during every evening meal at home now. I try to shut my phone off. And I want to encourage you to do the same thing. Number 4, try to reduce your screen time. We did a screen time study, and you looked at the amount of time that you're using screens, and we showed some of those results up on the screen. I want to encourage you, try to reduce your screen time when it's possible for you. Number 5, be here for the panel presentation at 10 o'clock today. Aren't we excited these folks are here? Yep. I'm super excited they're here too. Now, friends, you're going to get an opportunity today to participate. So I want you to grab your phone, pull that thing out, turn it on. Now, if you know how to utilize your silent button or your do not disturb, that's great. If you don't know how to do that, find somebody under 50 near you, they'll show you, okay? So I want to encourage you how to do that, but here's the deal. This is a no judgment zone. If your phone rings today during worship, we will not all stare at you unless your ringtone is a 49er ringtone. Then we might stare at you. But for now, we won't give you a hard time at all, okay? So get your phone out. I want you to go to a website. It's called menti.com. Menti.com. You're going to get to participate today. And I would just want to encourage you to enter the code that you see up on the screen that is up there right now. So I'm going to pull this up as well, menti.com, and you're going to be prompted with some questions throughout the day today. And these questions will be opportunities for you to participate. You won't see the results live today, but you'll have an opportunity to hear them from me. So right now, if you are on menti.com, you are looking at a question that says, have you inadvertently found content on the internet that made you uncomfortable? Have you done that? I see 6 of you have answered already, now 8 of you, now 10 of you. If you don't know how to do this, just look around, wave right now, Faye, or any of the folks who are in the room right now, they might be able to come help you. Menti.com. You're going to get several questions throughout the day today, and I want to call your attention to a little button that is at the bottom of your screen right now. At the bottom of your screen, it says, Ask a Question. If you come up with a question today, you can ask it at any time through the whole presentation. Just type it in there. It'll come directly to me and we'll answer them at the end, all right? So I want to encourage you throughout the whole presentation, answer the questions we put up there, but also let us know if you have questions. All right, one more chance. If you're on menti.com, you put in 4781, and you put the code 4781-2546. A whole bunch of you are liking that right now. And you're answering the question, have you inadvertently found content on the internet that made you uncomfortable? So far, we are about 98% of you have said yes, and 2% of you have said no, all right? So I want to encourage you to keep putting those answers in there. And in a few minutes, I'm going to give you the next question. So keep your phone handy for just a moment. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take an opportunity to introduce our panel that is here with me today. I'm super excited about these folks. They are gifted people who I'm super excited are here with us today. We're going to start with Matthew Gamet. He is both a parent. He's the Laboratory System Director for Idaho State Police Forensic Services. He's over here to my far right. I have actually known Matthew for quite a while, and I'm super glad that he can be here to share from you as both the parent of a teen and also someone that does this kind of work for a living, how important this is. So can we welcome Matthew? Glad he's here today. Right to my right is Colby Overstreet. Now, you might recognize the last name. He is married to our Director of Family Ministry, Amber Overstreet, who's hiding right there in the middle today. However, he's not here because he's married to Amber. He's here because he's an expert. And we're super glad he's here. He works as a software engineer for Micron and has a specialization in intellectual property protection. And I'm just super glad he's here to share with you as well. Can we welcome Colby? Right next to me is Sergeant Brett Kessinger, and he is with the Idaho Fusion Center, which is the Criminal Intelligence Center. He's also with the Idaho State Police Forensic Services Digital Evidence Unit, where he does a tremendous amount of stuff, and he's going to share with you a lot later about the things they see come through his area of expertise and how we can work against some of those things. I'm super grateful he's here. Comes on behalf of the Idaho State Police. Can we welcome him for being here today? Victor Dominguez, who goes by Vic, he is a retired law enforcement officer, and he is the executive director of the Idaho Internet Crimes Against Children Coalition. This is a group that you're going to hear about more today. In fact, you're going to have an opportunity to offer a donation to this organization. They are a nonprofit that works to do a lot of training and community awareness. They also provide software and training in a variety of things for law enforcement agencies as well. So they're fighting the good fight. All of these folks are up here to try to keep you and others safe on the internet. Welcome, Victor. We're glad that you're here today, too. Thanks so much for being here. Well, this team is going to answer a lot of questions, but remember, you're going to get your opportunities to participate as well. So I just wanted to show you the final results on that first question. You are about holding at 98%, found internet content that made you super, super uncomfortable. I want to ask you one more question before we get into it. You'll see it on your phone now. So just pull that up, and just quick question, have you ever fallen for a scam? Have you ever fallen for a scam? Now, be honest, because sometimes we don't always, I'm going to show the panel your results as they're coming in up here. Be honest, because sometimes we don't always want to be honest about this, but I'm going to tell you, we don't know who you are right now. We just see yeses, almost, and nos. So it's okay for you to say, well, yeah, I did, but I don't really want to admit it in public. We will not call you out right now, unless you're 49er. But you can be honest about this. And right now we're split. We're split about 33% of you saying, yeah, I've fallen for a scam. And 33% of you saying, almost. And about 33% of you ish saying, hey, no, I haven't done that. And a whole bunch of you liking and sharing those answers online right now. So I want to just encourage you to listen to these folks because they're going to give you some advice on this today. Feel free to keep answering those questions, but we're going to move ahead and we're going to ask the panel some questions because you didn't come here to listen to me talk today. Keep your phone handy because there's going to be more questions later, and remember, you can hit the Q&A button right now, anytime, and turn in your questions. I'll be getting those up here. So if you hear anything up here that you go, I want to ask a question about that, go ahead and turn it in now, and we'll get to it when we get there. All right, friends, we're going to turn to our panel, and we're going to ask some questions up here, and we're going to just invite them to share. Maybe this first time we can go in the same order we introduced you, but then we'll mix it up, all right? Does that sound good? Friends, in your professional experience, what do you see are the joys and the perils of technology?
So from my perspective, the joys are we can do things that we never could have even conceived of. We in the laboratory, especially in digital forensics, there are so many more tools that we have that are available to solve crimes, very violent crimes, and we're making a huge difference. We have a whole team right now that's looking at cold case solving and current case solving, and so those are definitely the joys to be able to work with some of those tools to bring closure to victims and their families. I think some of the perils, as you mentioned, Pastor did a great job of outlining some of the things that we see. I get calls every day to my office about someone who's fallen victim to a scam, and these are not people that are, elderly or things like that. Everyone, including myself. I have to be on guard every day. In fact, this week I saw a scam that I came across that I nearly fell for because it was so complicated and so good. So it affects everybody, and those are some of the perils. Is you could lose a lot of money, and you could do some serious damage.
Colby, what do you think?
I'm going to have to say that the joys would be communication. It's been amazing to have friends in China and other countries. I've got one friend who's a diplomat that I can continue talking with. And even as today, as you said, you're streaming online for people who might be sick or can't make it today. And just communication and getting information out there is amazing. Kind of on the other side of that, though, is that information is spread, or disinformation is spread much easier, but also that a lot of this technology can evolve and progress much faster than our laws and regulations or even counter technology. And so you're constantly having to think of ways to fight back against, scams or other types of crime. Just recently there's the whole Taylor Swift AI debacle on X, formerly known as Twitter, and there's no laws to prevent that, so what do we do as a society?
Could I ask you to define one word that they may not know, and you used a word about counter-technology. Mm-hmm. Could you just give them the amateur definition of what that might be?
With generative AIs, the ChatGPT, if people have heard about that, there's a phrase called script kiddies in cybersecurity, and those are people who can just go and get pre-written code, and they can just use that code to do something malicious. They don't really have the know-how of writing that code themselves. And with a lot of these generative AI technologies, they can just prompt some of these and say, hey, I want some code that can, bypass a firewall or something like that. And so having the counter technology like a good firewall or anti-malware program that can detect some of these new scripts that are appearing, you're constantly having to fight against.
Very good, very good. I did notice he mentioned Taylor Swift, and he meant to say the Chiefs. Sorry, I don't want to have to go there. Don't want to have to go there. Well, at least there's one thing to watch this afternoon, even if it's not the game. So let's move right on to Sergeant Kessinger. So your thoughts on the perils and joys of technology.
So I'd like to echo the sentiment of my colleagues over here. It's absolutely the joys of it and the perils of it. Personally, I come from an age group where back when encyclopedia salesmen still had a job, and now with the internet and everything, you have the world at your fingertips, and that is amazing, especially an internet or an information junkie like myself. Eat it up with a spoon. But perils-wise, you see, along with what Colby and Matt have pointed out, some new dangers. Some are riffs on old criminal tactics, and then you have the introduction of new criminal tactics with the technology. And so you're going to hear a lot of my answers are going to be through a law enforcement lens today, because that's what I've been doing for 25 years. But I'll go ahead and leave it at that.
Awesome. Vic, perils and joys.
Well, I've got to be honest with you. Is this on? Okay, great.
You getting a green light there, Vic?
Well, now I am.
There we go.
You got to know how to use the technology, first of all, I guess. I'm not, let me just say this. It's kind of hard for me to address it only because I've been involved with internet crimes against children for over 10 years. And that certainly has tainted my perception of technology, particularly as how it's evolved into the victimization of children. And it is not only a serious issue, but it's one that is progressively expanding and becoming even more serious, and that is hard to believe, but without going into all the details, I just feel that it is something that has been seriously abused and is continuing to be abused. I will say that, like my colleague Brett here, I also grew up in the days of Encyclopedia Britannica, and it is nice to have the availability of technology to be able to Google, to be able to get information, to be able to use it for purposes that, excuse me, I think it was intended for, which is primarily education and awareness and interaction with people around the world. So that's the best I can say in regards to technology.
Hey, let's ask the question. How many of you had an Encyclopedia Britannica? How many of you still have one, be honest? A couple of you. All right, very, very good. We're going to move on to the next question. And this question will probably start with Brett. And I want to just ask, what are the risks to adults or business today? We're going to talk a lot about kids too, but what are the risks to adults or business today?
Boy, we need more time than just this hour.
I bet we do.
The primary risks to the youth, I think, would be the easy availability of pornography. That comes with a lot of different perils itself. To regale you with a bit of a war story, pornography is like drugs. You never know how it's going to affect you. I've sent people to prison that started looking at normal porn and ended up getting involved in child pornography. And I hate to talk about things like this in this kind of a setting where we're trying to come and refresh for the week and hear the Word of God. But those are the realities that are out there. And then for business, the connectivity and the communication, the ease of communication is excellent for business. However, it comes with a lot of perils and caveats that you need to be well aware of, especially if you're employing technology in your business. To quote some experts, I stole this from someone, but in fact, Abagnale, if you know the story, to Catch Me If You Can, that story. But he broke down the elements of a scam. And it comes down to they introduce some kind of an urgency or exigency, so it's got to happen now, and then in exchange for money or information. So if in your business you're running into something like that, and the situation is it's got to happen now, this money's got to be sent now, this information must be sent now, slow down, take a breath, and take a look at things. You've summarized very well in those slides you had before. Yeah, I think that pretty well covers the ones that I see commonly in my job. So.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And you know, one of the things the panel and I talked about ahead of time was how do you talk about this openly? Because it does feel like that moment where you're kind of in a church setting, and how do you deal with some of the yucky stuff that happens? And we've kind of made an agreement amongst the panel that, you know, we're going to be in the PG-13 category, so you're going to hear some ugly stuff, but at the same time, we're going to try not to have too much our stuff. Just because of the content we're in, but it's important that you hear the truth and you understand the real issues that are there. So thank you for sharing. You deal with this every day. What are the risks to businesses today and to adults?
I would say a kind of a 2-in-1 is data. If we think to just really the big debate with TikTok in the United States and what they're after. A lot of times, Facebook included, Instagram, a lot of American companies do the same thing. It's just that they're based in the US, but when a product is free, it's because your data is what they're after. You know, that's, and more now is ChatGPT and these Gen AIs. Last year, a Samsung engineer uploaded some top secret code to ChatGPT, and they lost it, because if you read what ChatGPT says is once you prompt it and give it something, that data is no longer yours. They can then use it to generate new answers. And so I know Amber hears it a lot from me all the time, is just be careful what you're posting on the internet, picture-wise, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, anything like that, because a lot of times you really don't know what on the back end they're training. Facebook recently came out with their own generative AI called Llama, and they're using your Facebook data to train that. And so just be careful with what you're posting out there, and be careful about what it's also in return giving back to you, because a lot of times those algorithms are trying to feed you what you want to see and hear. So
that's good advice. That's good advice. How about we, there we go. How about we come over to Matthew? What do you think the risks to adults and businesses are today?
What I see from my own children and what I see from others around me, from data that we read, from things that we're seeing in casework, it's anxiety, it's depression, it's suicidal tendencies, it's suicidal thoughts. Those are the big concerns for me. A lot of times it's kids getting into things that they don't know how to get out of. But even more so, it's their friends coming back at them, bullying them, things of that nature. So we talked about the benefits of technology. It's certainly that they can contact with their friends. They can stay tight in a friend network and in a friend group. They have tighter friendships, I think, than I ever had, because they're constantly in communication with them. But the negative of that is they get so much negative self-image, and we're constantly struggling with that. And I think the counter to that, as we're in a church setting today, is their faith. The more you can bring them here, the more you can engage them in faith and in their belief in Christ and all of those kind of things. It's so important to counter all those negative things that they're getting every single day. I have a son that decided to delete Instagram this week. Well, there was a great benefit in that, because he realized how much time he was wasting on Instagram. However, the negative of that was the next day his friends were doing something and he didn't know about it. And there were some recruiting things that he was involved with college that he missed out on. And so it's really difficult. These kids are struggling every day with their use and their prevalence of use of these apps.
Thank you so much. Vic, how about the risks to businesses and to adults?
Well, to be frank, I mean, obviously, the scams that are out there are a risk for both businesses as well as adults. I think, unfortunately, that the scammers realize that we're all human. They take advantage of human nature. They represent things that are supposedly going on that are of an urgent nature, i.e., you know, your grandson is in jail. We need you to send us money that we can give to him to bail him out, to things like specifically, you just won $100,000. Just send us a check for the cost of the postage, and we'll be happy to mail you your check. And so some of these things are less sophisticated than others, but I think that unfortunately they know that human nature tends to encourage us to, whenever we think we can, try to get something for nothing. And that's the problem, that they have the benefit of having that insight with human nature and taking advantage of it when they try to scam you in one way or another.
We're going to come right back to Vic here in just a moment. Sorry, I'll turn my mic back on. There we go. We're going to come right back to Vic here in just a moment for the next question, which is, what are the risks to children? But before I ask him to answer that, I want to invite you to share something. So grab your phone real quick. And I just want you, while we're answering this question, I just want to invite you to share. Several of you already have. I'm asking you in 1 or 2 words to tell us what worries you the most about your kids or your grandkids online. what one or two words worries you the most about your kids or grandkids online. I'm going to show your answers to the panel. And what we see is we see the words that are the largest in the center of the screen being the ones said the most often, all right? So I'll show your words to the panel as they come in, but go ahead and share that, and we're going to ask Vic to share with us just a little bit about what do you think are the biggest risks to kids today? I know this is the whole purpose of your organization.
Well, that certainly is a big plate that we unfortunately can fill, and part of what I like to represent is the statistics that we've generated that probably tell the story better than anything I could share with you. We've determined that 81% of youth ages as young as 3 to 17 access the internet. We've also learned that 59% of children are social networking by the age of 10. Children are first exposed to internet porn by the age of 12. It's estimated 625,000 child porn traders are online monthly, with an estimated 34,000 Idaho children receiving internet sexual solicitations annually. 5,000 are exploited by mail calls and requests to meet in person. And finally, I can tell you that the Idaho State Attorney General's Task Force, which was first created to work with law enforcement to help address the issue of internet crimes against children, are now so inundated that their caseload has increased by 7-fold between 2017 and 2020. What that translates to is they no longer have the time or the resources to work with law enforcement in helping them investigate their cases. They're too busy with the limited staffing and resources they have to work the caseload that they have directly, that they're responsible for.
Thank you for sharing. Maybe we jump over here. I know you're coming to this as a parent and as somebody that works in this. Matthew, do you want to share a little bit about this? And I'm going to pass this over to Victor so he can see your answers as well.
Yeah, I noted that on the graphic that Rob called up there, sextortion was a big one that was in there. Some of the predator tendencies, those are big. If you're watching the news here locally, if you're watching the news regionally, you'll note about a month ago, there was a case out of Utah where a young girl, they found out, left her house. The parents thought that she had been kidnapped. Obviously, we're all aware of the Elizabeth Smart case, so that's what we're thinking, right? Some predator is going to come into our house and take our children out. That's not what happened. This child left voluntarily. She had been solicited online. She left, she went to an area where she could get to a bus, and then she was on her way to meet this predator. This is not uncommon, and Vic can tell us a lot more stories like that one. They're happening around us. One of the most disturbing things for me are the statistics, and Vic might be able to put these off the top of his head, but I believe last time I saw them, they were high 70s, even into the 80s, maybe even more, where images are being sent by children. These are high school kids, junior high kids, sending images of themselves, pornographic images, to others. And I get a lot of calls at my office every day about, what if my child gets one of these images? What do I do? Do I delete it? Am I going to be charged legally? All those kind of legal questions for you to deal with as parents. But the number of voluntary dissemination of that content, those images, is high.
How about we jump over here to Brett and to share with us a little bit about the risk right now to kids.
Yeah, Matt's done an excellent job of synopsizing that. Just the exchange of, or creation of an exchange of, and many times they don't mean to, but they're making child pornography. They're underage and sending images back and forth. That's a real problem. I notice on the list as well, the predators comes up pretty heavily, and there's a progression through that. Matt's story is particularly poignant in that no one broke into the house and took that young lady out. She, of her own volition, through whatever grooming and trickery was played on her, she left of her own volition to go with that person. And so there's a lot of grooming and isolation that precedes that. And we as parents and grandparents and aunts and uncles, whatever your relation to young people, need to be on the lookout for that kind of grooming and isolation. And when I say that, what I mean is people like this, predators like this, I found in my career have a sixth sense as far as finding out who the vulnerable amongst our youth are. And then they specifically target them and groom them, say nice words to them, pay them respects that maybe they don't feel they're getting elsewhere. And then they try to get them alone, sometimes digitally, or many times digitally, and then other times physically, like what happened in this story that Matt pointed out. And then finally, they will exploit those vulnerabilities they find, that naivety of our youth or even others, and then finally manipulate that individual to do things they don't want to do. So that's a huge problem. The bullying also looms large on the screen there. And that one is a tough one. I think it comes again to what's been spoken of already, the social media and the false expectations or the super high unattainable expectations that social media tends to put on everyone. And so, a good reverend has pointed out, take a break from it, get away from it, take some time from it, be face-to-face with real people. And I think that'd go a long way towards that. So hopefully that's good coverage of
That's wonderful. Thank you. I want to share with you some of the words that you're saying. The predominant words are bullying, are sextortion, predators, pornography, depression, addiction, body image, self-image, and a variety of others that you've shared as well. Those are the predominant ones in the middle. But some of the smaller ones that you've mentioned are things like developing human connection and social skills, and some of those items as well. There's a lot here. I'll be posting the results of this on our Facebook page this afternoon, so you can see what you've all said together. But I don't want to leave Colby out. But you've also, not only do you work in this area, but you've got kids too. So tell us, what do you think the risk to kids are?
Yeah, no, we're seeing that bullying is really the number one. One perspective I'd like to give is kind of going back to technology really advancing at a quicker pace than most of us, let alone law, can keep up with. Is if you think about 10 years ago, right, Snapchat was just coming out, it was the new thing, and right after Snapchat it was Instagram, and then there was Vine, and all of these new apps coming out. And so I know myself as a college student, I couldn't really keep up with it, let alone an adult trying to keep up with their teenager. It's hard. And so really trying to understand why those apps are important is important, but also when it comes to things like video games, bullying can really happen in there. If you hear a child talking about griefing, is I think what really the internet term would be for that. There's any myriad of ways that people can really be digitally bullied as well, in ways that adults might not think of. If a child loves, I've got some nephews who really, really love a dinosaur game. And if they were playing on a public server where others could join and people just started killing their dinosaurs, even their digital, it would really devastate them. And so that's another way that bullying can exist. And so it might seem silly to be like, oh, why are you upset about a digital dinosaur or something? But I think that kids nowadays, Fortnite craze, it's really big in part of their lives. And so understanding that these things do mean something to them is important.
I appreciate you all sharing. I have to tell you, I saw some of your faces as Matthew was sharing this story a little while ago, and you'll probably hear some more stories like that today, because it's important you see the reality of it. And I especially saw some of our teens' faces as those type of stories were shared. And friends, it's just as clear as we can say it. Bottom line is, if somebody asks you to send them nude pictures, do not do it. Just do not do it. And if you hear of that type of thing happening within your school, it's important you tell somebody you trust. If that's your mom, if that's a counselor at the school, that's a principal, a teacher, somebody you trust, it's important you tell, and most certainly do not ever share that with anybody else, all right? Once you put those kind of pictures out there, you never, ever get them back. They do not delete. There is no such thing. These four gentlemen up here are all experts at how to find things that people think they have deleted, all right? So it is absolutely impossible. Once it's there forever. So our best advice to you is just do not do it, all right? All right, we're going to move on to our next question. I want to share with you that if you're online today with us, you can also participate in these Menti polls, menti.com 4781-2546. You can participate as well. I'm going to share those results later, but I want to go on to the next question. And that is, how are the risks to adults, how are the risks to children, adults, and businesses different today than they were when we were young? Now, when I say we were young, some of you in your 80s or 90s, well, we can go, oh, it's really different than when you were young, right? And that's okay. But I'm going to speak a little bit more towards you who are parents today. When you grew up and you had some internet dangers and the internet was around and it was a risk, how is the risk different today to kids, even if you're a parent in your 20s right now? How is the risk differently? How about we just go round robin here? Who would be interested in diving into that one first? Anybody? How's the risk different? Go for it.
So I think the big thing I can think of is growing up, I would say first time using the internet was probably 2002, 2003 for me to go to Nickelodeon.com. And I think looking back, the biggest risks always that we were told about were pornography websites. That was always that's how you get viruses, that's how you get malware. And while yes, that's true even today, I think that a lot of scammers or bad individuals use various methods to try to get to targets, and it's not just pornography websites anymore. Facebook, I know it frustrates me a lot, and once again, my wife hears me rant about it quite a bit, but I'll see all the time people commenting on something that's, find the letter 5 in this block of S's. And if you do, no one's been able to solve it, you win a free cabin. And so, and I will actually do my best to gather evidence, and I'll use some tools to prove that it's a phishing link going to like a Google Docs page, and I'll submit this stuff to Facebook, and Facebook will say, no, it's a legitimate page. And they won't take it down. But that is a really big front to just gather some initial information, and further down the line, they do exactly as these gentlemen have said, where they say, oh, well first, you just got to send us a Zelle request, and if you just send us a little bit of money first, we'll send you this cabin. And so, I still think it stands that if it's too good to be true, it probably is. Finding the letter 5 in a block of S's isn't really enough to get you a free cabin or RV, as great as that might be, so.
Thank you. Any one of the three of you? One at a time. Go ahead, Brett.
So just in brief, what I found, the latest wrinkle, especially those of you that are at least of an age group where you're technically savvy, scam texts. You can confirm your shipment, or hey, this order came in. Click here to confirm that. It's now on our phones, on our smartphones. So that one I find is a honeypot a lot of people fall into. Another one would be spoofed phone calls. We're in a day and age now where we live and die by our caller IDs and that kind of thing. Those can be spoofed. So even though you may not recognize the number, the title that comes up would be someone you recognize or a company you recognize to put it in a business setting. And they use that, meaning the scammers, use that really heavily to get their foot in the door and promote their scam. And then finally, we're in a day and age where it's not like the old days where you got an email from dear sir or ma'am, whichever applies. I'm a king in Nigeria and I have $10,000. I need to move to the United States. Help me out. Now it's much more personalized. People are doing things called social engineering. And if you're a fan of old movies like, Catch Me If You Can is an excellent one. Sneakers is another good one. Any James Bond movie. They use social engineering a lot to get what they want. But they're very targeted. They actually go online and will research their target, research you, and reach out to you and call you by name and say, hey, I propose this to you. So again, it's important to know who you're dealing with and not deal with those that are just the voices from the ether and individuals that you don't know personally. That's always a pretty safe bet when you interact with someone you know.
Real quick, if I can
go
just
ahead,
chime in
yes.
on a true story. So last March, I was checking my bank account and noticed a fraudulent transaction. Went to the bank, and it was because it was a $40 Chipotle charge in California, and I definitely wasn't there at that time. So the card got canceled in March, and then in June, I got a phone call from my bank, and when I picked up, the first intuition sign was, it sounded like the guy was in his car. So immediately I said, no call center is going to be, I shouldn't be hearing a blinker go off. But he said, hey, Colby, this is a CapEd fraud, and we have a card of yours that's been breached. And he said, I just need to confirm a couple details with you. He then gave me my full name, my home address, and the last 4 digits of the card that was canceled in March. And so, while that may seem like a lot of information, it is so easy to get that, apart from the last 4 digits, unless somebody was on the dark web getting cards or something like that. But a lot of the information that you think is secure out there is very easy to find, even with just a quick Google search. The amount of information they can get on you to make it seem like they are legitimate is high. And so pretty much what I did with this guy is I just tried to keep him on the line as soon as possible, and eventually he told me to F off. So, and he hung up, which kind of proved that it wasn't CapEd. So, and then I went to CapEd and just said, hey, this is what happened, and they took some notes, and I never heard back from them. But yeah, it can be very personalized when they do try to go after you. So just be wary. The biggest thing, as talked about, is the urgency thing. I think some of the other panelists might say if the police are going to come and get you, they're not going to text you and say, you better do this right now. They'll probably be at your door.
I think I got that text from Brett this morning.
Yeah, so the best advice I can say is if you're getting a phone call from your bank, credit card, whatever, hang up, take out your card, and call the number on the back of your card. That way you know where you're calling. And if it's legitimate, the bank will 100% of the time understand. Or Pastor Rob, if Pastor Rob calls you because AI tools can now replicate voices, I'm sure he would understand if you said, hey, I'm just going to call you back to make sure this is you because asking for $500 of gift cards is suspicious, I think he would understand, so.
I've heard now I can preach for hours on end without having to think about it. Let's go to Vic or Matthew, either one of you. What do you think? How are the risks different today? Do you want to go ahead?
Well, if you don't mind, I'd like to get on my soapbox here a little bit.
Please.
We're supposed to try to keep it fairly brief, but when you talk about sextortion, when you talk about cyberbullying, there's a very critical component that comes to mind with all of these, and that is, what is the relationship between the child victim and the parental influence? We always propose that the first line of defense are the parents. We always recognize that in our day, used to be when a parent was coming home from work or they were tired or they had a lot on their mind, what would they do? They would set us down in front of the television, right? And say, watch some TV and don't bother me. Today, when parents come home tired, don't want to be bothered, they say, go and play on your computer. Don't bother me. And unfortunately, what happens is not only are we creating an environment with kids where kids begin to take the feeling or the attitude that my parents really don't care, and my only real companion is the internet, and therefore, why should I expect to go to them? Why should I expect to ask them for advice about what we should or shouldn't do, particularly when they begin the process of being victimized? And I say they begin. they find themselves in a position by being on the internet of getting victimized, and they don't have the relationship with the parent many times to go to them and share that. And when it comes to things like sextortion and, frankly, the fact that cyberbullying is such a factor, that is a direct result in many cases, and in a growing number of cases, that children are actively engaging in sexting. Now, how do we define sexting? The sending of sexually explicit messages or digital images. That's the bottom line. That's what sexting is. And we've determined that up to half of all teens ages 11 to 14 are likely to send or receive those types of text messages, whether they're solicited or not. And many of those messages are presented to them in a way by their peers, particularly in school, where their fellow students say, hey, you should see what I sent to my boyfriend, or you should see what he sent me. By the way, don't you have a boyfriend? Have you sent him any pictures? You haven't. What is wrong with you? Don't be stupid. You're going to lose him if you don't, or you're going to lose her if you don't. So kids have a very serious social pressure with their peers to engage in that kind of activity, thinking it's harmless. The reality of it is there's laws on the books here in Idaho that make it a crime to send those types of images or messages, regardless of whether it's mutually acceptable or not in terms of who's getting them and who is sending them. Now, we don't typically threaten kids with arrest or prosecution, but we do want them to understand that's how serious the system takes this activity. And frankly, when they send those types of images, what happens? The boyfriend and the girlfriend break up. What do you think happens to the images that the other has received? They distribute them, and they send them around to all of their fellow students to try to humiliate and embarrass them. And not only do the fellow students get it, but then you get the predators who find it, and as a result, they extort, which is part of how we identify sextortion, with the child to say, I have this picture of you. If you don't send me more, I'm going to distribute this to your entire school, to your parents, to all your friends. So you'd best cooperate and send me what I ask you for. And that's how it evolves, and that's how it becomes a more significant problem. And the deeper they get into that type of activity, and then they can't meet the demands of the sextortionist, many of these kids either attempt or commit suicide because they're at their wits' end, they're thoroughly humiliated, and again, they find themselves unable to go to a parent or even a trusted adult because they're so embarrassed. So the challenge really is with us as adults and as parents to think about, what do I have in terms of my relationship with my children, with my teenagers? Do they trust me? Will they come to me? Will they know that even if they did something they shouldn't have done, I'm willing to sit down with them, talk about it, and help them get through it rather than chastise or criticize them? That's the bottom line in terms of a lot of this activity. And I can tell you that unfortunately, these kids who do engage more than likely don't have a healthy relationship with their parental influence. Anyway, I'm off my soapbox, so I just wanted to address that because I know that that is something that was brought up that is important, sextortion and also cyberbullying. I will just end this thing with telling you that we got a bulletin from the FBI back in actually we got it last year, and it it was issued concerning the victimization of at least 3,000 mostly boys, ages 14 to 17, who were connected by over a dozen suicides because there was a criminal gang in southern Africa that was reaching out to these kids, pretending to be a young female, sending them photos and encouraging them to send photos back. And these kids very naively did that. And once these criminals had those photos or those videos, they then engaged in cyber extortion and told them, send us more or we'll do this or this is going to happen. And it's become an organized crime issue. And that's the sad part. And the worst of it is when kids feel the only way out is to kill themselves. Thank you.
I'm going to let Matthew share as well, but before he does, I just want to share with you that as a pastor, you do a lot of funerals for people who have completed suicide. I think in my ministry career, I've done 13 or 14 of those now in the last 10 years with teenagers. And in every single case, the internet is involved somehow. It is internet bullying or some of the things you just heard these folks talk about. It's always involved. So in a minute, I'm going to let Matthew share, and then I'm going to ask these folks to give us a couple quick bullet points on the warning signs before we get to the point where you're in my office talking about a celebration of life for your child. All right? So Matthew, you want to answer that question first?
Well, I just wanted to tag on a little bit here about data breaches. So I always say it's not a matter of if, but when your data is going to be breached. I've received a number of letters this month to my own inbox, to my own mailbox that says your data was compromised in this mortgage thing or in this health release or whatever. It's a matter of when. Your data is going to be out there, but don't be your own data breach. What I mean by this is you are very smart individuals. You're getting education here, you're getting education other places. Educate your families, educate your kids. So one of the ones I just texted my family group chat about, my sisters, all my extended family, was please stop sharing information on Facebook when they solicit information from you. When they say, what is your birthday? What is this? What is your favorite color? Those things seem so innocent. But guess what you've done? You've given them probably your passwords. You've given them information about you that you use in your password. After you enter your password, they say, what's your favorite color? What was your high school teacher's name? You're giving them that information. You're making it easy for them. So if there's no reason to participate in a survey, don't. Don't be your own data breach.
All right, I want to ask the panel to share, and just so in case those of you are wondering where we're at today, we plan to go up to about 11:30 today, so we'll go about 20 more minutes with some of this, and then we'll close with a song and a prayer together before we head out. But I want to ask about warning signs. What would you tell parents, grandparents who are raising kids, whoever it might be, what would you tell them are the warning signs that we need to be looking for? Brett, do you mind starting with that?
Not at all. What I've found in my casework over the years is there'll be a very obvious change, some kind of depression, heavy depression, or a withdrawal from interaction, that kind of thing. It's kind of the same warning signs you hear for youth on drugs, that kind of a thing. It's a severe downturn of some kind. The grades take a drop, something like that. Now, the challenge these days is, with many of our youth, that's a very difficult line to see because there's a lot going on, and what might be one day mild depression, you can mistake the signs. And so what Vic and everyone else up here has been talking about is that communication with your young people and a communication amongst each other. You are your support group. This congregation, you have a support group right here. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking, that direction.
I'm certainly not laughing, but I'm going to show this to, I'm just logging into our live streaming account on our stream today just to check on our folks that are live streaming with us, and I'll show this to Colby, but here is the message I just received. Your password has appeared in a data leak, which puts this account at high risk of compromise. You can't make this stuff up, folks. Well, we'll have a new live streaming password by the end of the day. Who else would like to hit that one on warning signs? Anyone want to touch on that? Vic, go ahead.
I think some of the things that we've listed is withdrawal from family and increased desire for privacy. If your child is more withdrawn from you in the family setting than normal and wants more privacy, that's a clue. Receiving gifts and phone calls from unknown subjects. Gee, another big clue. And finally, mood changes that Brett hit on. It includes depression, isolation, and even suicidal risk. I think that part of this is your sensitivity, again, to your children. When your kids start to go into some of these mood changes, how sensitive are you to that occurring, and what do you do about it? Some people just say, go to your room until you improve your mood, or I don't want to talk about it with you right now, we'll talk another time. And this isn't an indictment against parents. Look, being a parent is a tough job, and I fully respect that. But unfortunately, or fortunately, if you're going to have a child, and you're going to raise that child, you have that responsibility to be that child's parent. There are no other options in terms of parental influence. You are it. So get to know what's going on with your children, what the risks are for them on the internet. Learn a little bit about the technology and some of the signs that your child might be in trouble. And be proactive in addressing it with your child. You don't need to come on threatening. You don't need to come on overly aggressive. Just sit down and show concern. Sit down and tell them, I've noticed this, let's talk. What's going on? It can be as simple as that. And it's hard sometimes for parents to understand how important that is for a child, especially because they don't necessarily understand the severity of what they're experiencing and what it could ultimately lead to. Thank you.
Thank you. Others that would like to touch on that?
Yeah, Rob, I just wanted to weigh in because I am currently, with all of you, I have teenagers. I have young 20-year-old daughter, I have teenage boys, and what Vic described and even what Brett described as some of the warning signs of involvement in either drugs or in something with digital, guess what? It sounded like a normal teenage boy to me. That's what we're facing. That sounds like a normal teenage boy. So how do you distinguish when your son or your daughter is just a normal teenager dealing with being tired, having hormones out of control, and everything else that's going on in their life, and that they're in trouble? That's what we're dealing with. It's a reality. I think it's being available to them when they're ready to talk. And it's establishing those lines of communication. What I've learned, what my wife and I have learned, is being available to them to have the conversation, making sure that they know other avenues for them to have those discussions. You've got a pastor here that has his door open all the time for them to come in and talk to. They should have hopefully good friend groups, encouraging good friend groups, but being open. What I've found in my experience is I have gotten all of the apps that they have. I've tested them out, I've played with them, yep, I've had all of the apps played with. In fact, I was just playing with a new one that they're saying, Dad, this is the greatest thing out, we're gonna do that. Great, let me throw it on my phone, let's see how it works, I wanna know about it. And I've added every security feature that there is on their iPhones, and we gave them the iPhones at the perfect time, or what's advisable is the perfect time. You could do everything perfect as a parent. But the thing I've found is keeping the lines of communication open. And the second thing is bring it into the light. Don't allow it to be in the darkness. We're in a church setting today. We all know who is the purveyor of light and who is the purveyor of darkness. And what I mean by that is very pointedly bring it into the light. Bring it into the living room. Bring it out of the bathroom, the bedroom. The technology should never be in those places. It needs to be in lighted places, literally in lighted places. Teach them to be responsible. You're never going to set passwords. You're never going to set protections that are going to protect them from this stuff. It comes in automatically. It comes in through the reels. It comes in through all the other stuff that they're on. It just comes to them. You have to build it internally. It comes from being here. It comes from establishing their relationship with Christ. It comes with establishing relationships with you.
If I might just add to that, many of the kids who get into trouble are addicted to the technology. And it is frankly, an addiction that ranks right up there with drugs and alcohol. They cannot get away from it because they're so inclined to want to use it so much that if you ever threaten them to take their devices away from them, they will react almost like they're going through withdrawals. So your first test is, what happens when you threaten to remove a device from them? How addicted could they actually be, and how much of that addiction is controlling their lives? One of the things that we recommend to parents is, most kids, or many kids who get into trouble between the hours of 11 p.m. and 4 a.m. Now, where do you suppose they are at those times? They're in their bedrooms. They're supposed to be going to sleep. But if they have a device in their bedroom, trust me, they're not going to sleep. They're on their devices, and that privacy that they demand is something that they take advantage of, unfortunately. So try this out just as a quick tip. If you allow your children to take their devices into their bedrooms at night, stop that. Take their devices, put the devices in a place that you know where they are, make sure that they cannot access it overnight. And the first question is, how are they going to react and why? And of course, if you're reluctant to be called the worst parent in the world, then just go ahead and give in to them, because that's what they're typically going to tell you. None of my friends' parents do that. But you need to step up and say, yeah, that's your story. I'm going to prohibit you from having devices when you go to bed at night. You're supposed to be in there sleeping. And we'll secure those devices until you get up in the morning. That's a big clue.
We're going to move to a couple last questions here, and I want to just start with Colby on this next one because it's what he does for a living. And I just want to ask, what are the best practices for businesses and nonprofits? Because not everybody here has kids. We've been talking about kids a lot because it's so close to all of our hearts. But at the same time, what are the practices for businesses and nonprofits today to protect intellectual property, to guard against loss? This is your day 24/7. So what are the best practices there for folks?
So it's really going to vary depending on the size of the company and all that. Working at Micron with 44,000+ people, it's going to be different than even this church. So I think the best thing you can always do is really have good data storage standards. So when you're dealing with PII, or personally identifiable information, salary information, any of the, with the daycare side, kids information, when you go home at night, how is that information stored? Is it safe in the cloud, locked behind a good strong password? Or is it just on a hard drive that's unencrypted, sitting out in the open? Really that's the big one. PII, I think, is really the big thing for any small nonprofit. But then secondly would be, if there is a breach, or you come in one day and all your computers have a screen on that says, give us $10,000 or we won't unencrypt, do you have a plan in place to remediate that? Do you have really good backups that you can use, frequent backups of your information that you can say, you know what, good thing that we just did a backup yesterday, so we're just going to reboot everything off of that and we're safe. I think that's really the most important, is having a good plan, because as mentioned before, it's not a matter of if, it's when, and that's hopefully it's not something big like a complete lockdown where they encrypt all of your computers, but even if it's something small, what can you do to recover? Do you have a plan to make sure that you can mitigate those risks or respond to them efficiently.
Others, Brett, go ahead.
Yeah, in the criminal intelligence system, we get a lot of cybersecurity awareness bulletins and people that have failed in the regard that Colby's just been talking about. And so the basics apply very heavily. Make sure you're using strong passwords. I don't know how many times, I do computer forensics as well, and the password is password, right? Everyone thinks they're so original, but they're not. Strong passwords, update your software, just that basic hygiene that Colby's been talking about. In another light, train your personnel to be on the lookout for those common pitfalls. Anymore, talking to cyber experts that I work with, especially with Department of Homeland Security, they talk about your employees being the weak link now. And so that training is going to be key to avoiding those pitfalls there. And then finally, to avoid, well, not finally, I have one other point, but one other thing to work on is some kind of secure communication, some kind of safe word or something like that. So when that scam comes, when that exigency is inserted into the situation, you can go, okay, what's the password, right? And you can kind of stop that in its tracks. And then a final tactic real quick that I wanted to brush on. Some of these people that are targeting businesses will leave a USB in the parking lot, just a random USB drive in the parking lot, in the hopes that an employee is going to go, hey, score, I got this sweet 2 gigabyte thumb drive, and they'll take it into their office and plug it into their computer, and thereby inserting code into the computer and opening that up. So just another little devious thing that they're out there doing.
I just want to chime in. Those USBs, you can buy them on your own. There's one called a rubber ducky that you can just go and buy. Amazon might even have them. And so this is going back to what I mentioned earlier about the script kiddies. You don't have to really be some mastermind sitting in their mom's basement in the dark, 10 monitors coding all day. A lot of these things are available to buy online. I know I got really excited last year when I was actually taking my penetration testing course, which is offensive security, so you're learning to actually hack. One of the things I got was called a Flipper Zero, and law enforcement I know is familiar with it because it's kind of one of those script kiddie type things where they actually just came out with an app on the iPhone where you could just download new modules. And one thing that recently that people found they could do with this was actually jam iPhones. iPhones were sending out a signal, and you could replicate that signal and send it back to an iPhone, and it would brick an iPhone. And yeah, a lot of times it's just fun, especially if you're doing it to your own stuff, you're allowed to do that. But if you're, if I'm sitting up here with that device and all of a sudden bricking yours and you didn't give me permission, that is against the law. And another thing was opening up like Tesla charging ports. People found out Tesla, to open up the charging port, they all use the same frequency, the same signal, and so you can go on YouTube and watch people just drive around streets, and every time they were by Tesla, they just press a button and boop, the charging port would open up. So a lot of these things are freely available, not too expensive, and so yeah, it's you just be careful with what you find and what you plug in. That is a very big technique still used even in what they call red teaming, which is where you're given permission to try to break in somewhere to test a company or anything, and that method is still used because, as mentioned many a times, the people are still the weakest link. So you're going to find that person who's, oh yeah, 256 gig drive, score mine, and yeah, they go in and plug it in. And so if your company doesn't have any USB blocks on their computers, they're in. So
That is good news. I'm going to invite Matthew and Vic to share on this idea of how we protect businesses, and then we're going to watch a short video, and we're going to close with a final question and go from there. So Matthew, you look like you
I just wanted to
share.
add on to what he said. Be careful what you plug into your computer. Be careful what you plug your devices into. So now if you plug into certain USB ports at airports and in public places, they are able to skim that. Be careful. Even when you're at the gas station, there's skimmers on gas stations. But we're also finding more sophisticated devices and things that when you plug in your devices, it downloads viruses to your devices. So just be careful. If it doesn't make sense, don't do it. If you don't need to plug into a public USB, don't do it. If you get a rental car, don't plug into the rental car's USB because that can download all the data from your phone. In fact, it does. So there's a lot of things just to be aware of, public awareness. Just protect yourselves.
I just noticed a whole lot of people get very nervous in the room. So.
Yeah, and I just wanted to chime in that one of those fake chargers for like an iPhone, the same people who make those rubber ducky USB drives and stuff, they make a lot of these softwares, and they're like $30. And so not very expensive to, find a charging cable, plug it in, and yeah, your phone's now compromised. So it's not a very expensive curve to get over anymore.
I'm really glad Colby's on our side. Vic or Brad,
Just
you want to go for it? Go
real
ahead.
quick point, and we don't mean to sit here and scare you. It's really more awareness and being educated about it. Ronald Reagan stole it from the Russians, but trust but verify. That's words to live by right there.
Vic.
Well, the only thing I can add to this is that I have rented cars and I have plugged into the rental car, and so I've probably been violated and compromised more often than I'd like to admit. But in case this is my last chance, I just wanted to thank Reverend Rob and your church for hosting this type of an event. I just wish more churches would get involved in doing something like this, because it really is important for us to be able to reach out to the community. We can be experts and we can have information, but if we aren't able to share it, then it loses its value. And unfortunately for us even, it's still a struggle sometimes to get the word out. A lot of people don't want to hear about internet crimes against children. They'd rather put their heads in the sand and say, not in Idaho, not my kids. So it was very brave of Reverend Rob to do this and to have us here to talk about it. And I know we've talked about that we have a full presentation that runs approximately an hour with questions and answers, where we go into more definitive information about crimes against children, the apps, ways to protect your children when they're on the internet, and hopefully we'll have a chance to do that at some point in the future. So thank you very much.
Absolutely, absolutely. Friends, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a moment and watch a video. You're going to have an opportunity to offer a gift that supports this nonprofit, Idaho, I'm going to have to say it again. I have to look at the acronym. Help me out, Vic. Idaho Internet Crimes Against Children Coalition. I got it without
Very
looking.
good.
There we go. You're going to have an opportunity to offer a gift today to support them in their work. It's important work, as you can see. Then we're going to close with one question, and that's for the team up here. I'm simply going to ask them in a moment, what are their top 2 or 3 ways, briefly, that you can protect yourself, your kids, and your teens? Top suggestions before you head out. Could I ask for the video?
The Idaho Internet Crimes Against Children Coalition has a single vision: to protect Idaho's children from internet predators. Every child in possession of any device with internet access is a potential victim of child sexual exploitation material, sextortion, cyberstalking, child enticement, or sexual abuse by internet child predators. Our goal is prevention through awareness and education. As a nonprofit, the coalition utilizes current and retired law enforcement officers and qualified professionals to provide training through 2 educational settings. First, our cost-free public outreach program provides Idaho's children, parents, schools, and community members with age-appropriate information and resources designed to help protect children from becoming victims of internet crimes. We know a child's best protection is awareness and active vigilance by parents, teachers, leaders, and all caretakers of children. Second, our law enforcement program equips local agencies to knowledgeably identify reported predatory behavior, collect and package evidence, and file crime reports to apprehend and prosecute sexual predators. Where possible, the coalition provides law enforcement agencies with cost-free investigative hardware and software needed to successfully conduct these criminal investigations. Child predator exploitation through the internet poses a serious threat to Idaho's youth. Will you help us protect Idaho children against these despicable internet predatory crimes? Volunteer or give today at www.iicaccoalition.org.
greeters to gather the offering plates, and they're going to pass those offering plates around the room. This is your opportunity to offer both a gift to the church as well as a gift to this important nonprofit. Now, if you're putting money in the plate today, it's going to be very important that you clarify what that goes to. So before we pass the plates for a moment, we're just going to invite you to do that. I might ask Faye to grab a couple of the offering envelopes in the back as well. If we could just make sure you designate your gift, we'll get it to the right place. If you are online, could I have the slide, please, with the texting that's at the end of the message? Thank you. If you like to text an amount to 84321 and follow the instructions there, you are able to designate a gift to the Idaho Internet Crimes Against Children simply by texting an amount to 84321 and then putting the letters after it, IICACC. If you simply text a gift, it's going to ask you a couple questions. If you've never given by text to give before, it's going to ask you a couple questions. It's going to invite you to designate your gift there. For those of you that might be on our website, you can give at nampaumc.org. You can click on donate, and you can choose to split your gift there. You can give a regular gift that you normally give on Sundays. You can also choose now, you can just do the drop down and choose IICACC as an opportunity. We will ensure that your gifts get to the right place. So if you're online, choose the designations you would like. If you're here in the room, use the offering envelopes that Ron is passing out so you can designate your gifts. As you do that, I'm going to invite this team to answer one final question. And remember, you can also be texting in your questions. We're not going to get to them all live today, but I'm going to offer these. You have asked 14 questions, 11 of them I'm going to give to this panel, and they're all very similar. So I'm going to give to them and maybe invite them if they just want to give us a couple sentence answer. We're going to send them out to you as a group, so you get them. That way you get those answers. But we're going to invite our ushers to go ahead and do this as our team answers the final question. Give us your top 3 ways for them to protect themselves, whether that be seniors or protect their kids or teens. Vic, you get the first word.
Awareness.
Do you mind grabbing your mic there? That way folks at home can hear you.
I thought I was done with the microphone, sorry. Awareness, which results in education and prevention. If you aren't aware, then you're ill-equipped, you're unarmed to be able to avoid being victimized.
Always discuss the nevers amongst yourselves and your children, and I'll rip through the list real quick so I don't forget one. Granting access to your computer, paying with pictures of gift cards, sending naked pictures, money for romance scams, banking info, and sending money to unknown individuals.
2 of you, what are your top ways for folks to protect themselves?
I'm going to have to say make sure your computers, phones have antivirus, anti-malware software. You can get, Best Buy usually has sales on Bitdefender for like $25, and that will make sure that, a lot of times Bitdefender actually will protect against websites. You'll click on a website and they'll say, hey, we stopped this website from loading, don't go there. That very general, can protect you. A little more expensive if you're really wanting to look into what devices on your home network are doing. You can get something called a Firewalla, which is a pretty simple plug-and-play device that will tell you, hey, your iPhone just uploaded 5 megs to this website. But as a parent, this also allows you to set up blockers and say, hey, you know what? After 8 o'clock, block Facebook, block TikTok, block this, or block all pornography websites. It gives you some good insight into what devices are doing, and also allows you to set some limits without, I'd say, encroaching on some of those personal boundaries. Parents know they might upset their kids about, hey, give me your passwords and all that. So, yeah.
Good stuff. Matthew. And greeters, if you're going ahead and receive this morning's offering, this is our regular church offering and our gift to this awesome nonprofit doing good work. So if you could receive that this morning, if you're online, www.nampaumc.org, click on donate or use text to give and send your amount to 84321. Matthew.
Keep the lines of communication open. Be ready when your children are ready to talk to you about things. Be ready to have the conversation, make opportunities to have that conversation. Second, teach them and continue to teach them like you are here today, that they are divine and that they have divine potential. Teach them what the end goal is. Teach them where they want to go, both in this life and beyond. You're doing that here in your church, and that's so important that you're here, and it's so important that your children are here and are learning about their divinity. And third, I would say bring things into the light. This discussion today is about bringing it into the light. It's about leaving the shadows and the darkness, bringing everything into transparency. All of these people, all the fraudulent folks, all the purveyors of pornography and everything else, they want it to be done in the dark. Don't allow them. Don't allow it to be in your home in the dark. Bring things into the light. That's the way we solve these problems.
Friends, I'm super thankful for this group. They offered their time today, which has been awesome. You've asked a lot of questions. I'm going to pass it on to them. You have some great questions that we'll try to get you answers to. You ask about loss of privacy. You ask about specific platforms like Instagram. You ask a lot of things about how to identify what the real email address somebody sent something from was versus the kind of spoof things. You ask about the next evolution in tech, good and bad. You ask for a definition of dark web. You ask for recommendations to build a healthy life on the internet. You talked about teachers and educators and providing training in that area. I'm going to answer that one and just say that's something Vic's nonprofit does, and that's why you're offering a gift right now. So I want to encourage you to keep doing that and offer those gifts. You talked about people being targeted, search internet histories, and a variety of other things. I'm going to pass those on to the team. The only 3 questions I'm going to answer for you very quickly are very simple. Rob, do you believe the 49ers are biblically supported? I've spent a master's degree and a doctoral degree in seminary. The Bible is a very difficult book to read, but the answer is quite simple, no. You asked questions about who will win the coin toss. Simple answer, it doesn't matter. The end is all that matters. And lastly, you asked, why are the Chiefs only a 2-point underdog and not 10? The end is what matters. I'll pray for you. You asked a lot of really good questions, too. I'll be providing those to the panel. I wanted to just invite you to join me for a minute, though, and pray for these folks. These folks all come from very different faith backgrounds. I specifically didn't ask their faith background because it doesn't matter. What matters is the work that they're doing. I see Jesus in their work, and I think it's super important. So I just want to invite you to join me for a minute. Let's pray for them, okay? Holy God, thanks so much for all of these folks that just serve you in their own ways. They serve in business. They serve in law enforcement. They serve as parents. God, mostly they just serve as people that care about others and try to protect other people. So God, no matter what faith tradition they might come from, God, we just continue to protect them and help strengthen them on the hard days. God, we know that each person on this panel has had to see things that are almost impossible to unsee. So God, we ask that you just strengthen them in those hard moments. Give them your courage on the days that are difficult. And God, help them continue to fight the good fight, to protect people that desperately need protecting. God, we know it was a value of you to stand up for those who are vulnerable, and these folks do this each and every day. So God, we'd ask that you would just continue to guide them in their work. And all of God's people said, amen. Friends, we're going to invite the band to lead us in one closing song as these gentlemen head to the lobby. But I just wanted to take one more moment. Can we just thank them for their being here today? All right, we're going to invite you to stand as you're able. Let's sing our closing song together. Gentlemen, if you just turn your mics off, that way we don't get some echo here. I'm going to let these guys head to the lobby while you sing our closing song together.
Spirit of the living God.
Friends, I want to thank you for being here in worship today. Our panel is in the lobby. I know they would appreciate your thanks and appreciation on the way out the door. They do hard work oftentimes behind closed doors, so I want to encourage you to thank them on the way out. If you didn't get a chance to give a gift, I want to encourage you to do that as you leave, especially towards the Idaho Internet Crimes Against Children Coalition. Friends, Ash Wednesday is this week. Come back and join us. We're going to worship together in a time of quiet. I think it will touch your hearts. It's 6:30 this Wednesday night. It's the beginning of the Lenten season. Don't miss it. This is a great way to focus on your own faith journey. We've put our Lenten calendar out on the web. We're going to put it up on the screen now too. Our Lenten calendar, we're going to be diving into a series called Listen. We're going to be talking about what it means to hear a still small voice from God and find your own. So I want to encourage you just to be a part and present throughout that. Friends, we are serving in Ontario every single Wednesday now from 9 to 3. You can join us for any one of those. We also have 2 Saturdays, February 17 and March 16. Can I go back there? Yeah. February 17 and March 16. Those have childcare available. So if you'd like to come and join us, we would love to have you. You do need to register for those, but we'd love to have your work. Men's breakfast on the move is going to be in Ontario in March as well. All those are on the internet. Friends, we're going to be, the team has offered 3 things today. Number 1, the Idaho Internet Crimes Against Children Coalition is going to come back and do a presentation just for parents of kids. So I want to encourage you. Their presentation is good for ages 10 and up. They're going to come back and do that just for you, that focuses on tangible tools that's going to help you. The state police have offered to come back and do workshops anytime we request them on specific items. And Colby Overstreet just came up and said, hey, if any of your folks, especially seniors, need a little bit of IT support, sometimes having trouble understanding something, he is more than willing to help you. So this team is not only here given an hour and a half today, but they are willing to help you long term. Can we thank them one more time for all their hard work? Will you receive this benediction? As you go out into the world, go out seeking to use technology in ways that bless others. Be cautious with the perils around technology. Speak kindly. Speak with grace, but speak truth. And when you do, you receive the blessings of God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And all of God's people said, amen, and go Chiefs.
Down to this, what you require of me, love my neighbor as myself, and you above all things. just sing of mercy, for coming.